Let me fix my mic, okay? All right, so this is Megan Mosley, and I'm reading Baghdad Burning. It is a book, an independent book published in 2005 by, drumroll please. Let me put my mic on my bear, okay? That way you can hear me better. It was published by the Feminist Press at the City University of New York, the Graduate Center. All right, so let's go ahead and read some of this. This is the foreword by Adaf Sayyaf. I think that's how you say Adaf Sayyaf. I don't know exactly. All right. I wish, says Riverbend, towards the end of her blog, every person who emails me supporting the war, safe behind their computer, secure in their narrow mind and fixed views, could actually come and experience the war live. End quote. Baghdad Burning brings us as close to the war in Iraq as it's possible to be. And close does not mean just knowing about electricity cuts and water shortages, about street battles and raids on homes. Close means right into the heart and mind of a young Baghdadi woman as she lives through the war. Her career interrupted, her social life blown, Riverbend decides to reach out and blog her account of the war onto the internet. I looked for a rant log, she says. This is the best Google came up with. But Baghdad Burning is far from being a rant. It is an articulate, sensitive, often witty, always brave narrative of what it is like to be an Iraqi living in Iraq today. By the way, I will mispronounce Iraq. I'll either say Iraqi, because I'm from Texas, and that's just how we say it, or I'll say Iraq, or I'll say Iraq, or I'll say Iraqi. Be patient. It is a narrative authentic for being firmly embedded in the daily life of her family and friends. While her parents are kept in the shadows, Riverbend's beloved brother E is right there with her, sharing her tasks and her thoughts. And because Riverbend is responsive to questions and comments sent to her blog, she, from time to time, treats us to a potted introduction to particular subjects. Arab family ties, women in Islam, the hijab, Ramadan customs, saving and investment, relations between Muslims and Christians, relations between Sunnis and Shia, university education in Baghdad, and many others. A great many of the questions that Arabs that have so exercised the Western public over the last several years are answered here. For me, also an Arab woman, her accounts invariably ring true. None more so, perhaps, than the riposte of the insidious and recurring charge of anti-Americanism. Quote, when I hear about anti-Americanism, she writes, it angers me. Why does America identify itself with its military and government? Why does being anti-Bush and anti-occupation have to mean that a person is anti-American? We watch American movies, listen to everything from Britney Spears to Nirvana, and refer to every brown fizzy drink as Pepsi. In fact, far from being anti-anything, this book is firmly on the side of humanity and on the side of life. Even the invading troops were once seen as deserving of human sympathy. On May 7th, 2004, 14 months into the invasion, Riverbend writes, There is a time when people here felt sorry for the troops. No matter what one's attitude was to the occupation, there were moments of pity towards the troops regarding their nationality. We would see them suffering under the Iraqi sun, obviously wishing they were somewhere else, and somehow that vulnerability made them less monstrous and more human. That time has passed. Remember, this was written in 2005. The Watershed was the publication of the now notorious torture photographs from Abu Ghraib. I think it's Abu Ghraib. There have been other watersheds since, the destruction of Fallujah being the most obvious. There is naturally a fair amount of politics in the book, but it is never abstract or ideologically motivated. It stems from what is happening on the spot, from the invasion itself. The front line is homes. The collateral damage are our friends and family. To the appointment of the Iraqi Governing Council and the economy, for sale, a fertile, wealthy country with a population of around 25 million, plus around 150,000 foreign troops and a handful of puppets, to the efforts of reconstruction, the undesirability of deploying Turkish troops in Iraq, the forgetting of Iraqi intelligence and academics, and the plans for elections. Riverbend's account is always intelligent and perceptive. Here, even a discussion of the flashy tie is Riverbend's take on an aspect of Ahmad Shalabi. I stare at him when he gives, I stare at him when he gives us speeches on television and cringe with the thought that someone out there could actually have thought he was representative of any faction of Iraqi society. I can hardly believe that he was supposed to be one of the target Iraqi intellectuals and secularists. He's the pinpoint description of the feelings of the vast majority of Arabs towards the leaders selected for them by Western powers. This book should shame all those with a lingering imperialist bent of mind who see Iraqis, or Arabs, or Muslims, or third worldians as somehow lesser, or at best developing. For in its astute observation, sharp analysis, and hard-headed interpretation of what is happening in Iraq, Baghdad Burning cannot be bested. One charge that could be laid at the book's door is that it lacks geopolitical perspective. It rarely ventures outside Iraq, and it does not offer a theory for why the Bush administration deemed it necessary to invade the country. I think it is fair to say that the world's media, mainstream and alternative, are not lacking in these kinds of analysis and theories. What they do lack is the voice of an ordinary Iraqi. Resident in Iraq, they tell us what the invasion looks like. This is the function that Baghdad Burning fulfills uniquely and with the power and elegance. Baghdad Burning makes painful reading. It also makes enjoyable, even fun reading. It is certainly reading. Never naive, never blinking, it is a wise and disillusioned book. Yet it is not cynical, for it insists on identifying and celebrating what is good and what is hopeful. English-speaking readers are incredibly lucky that this young Iraqi woman has written her narrative straight into English, that they can hear and relate to her directly without the mediation of a translator. She should not, of course, have had to write this book at all. But now that she has written it, and written it so brilliantly, I hope English speakers everywhere will take Riverbend and Baghdad Burning to their hearts. Adaf Sayouf. London, December 2004. That's the foreword. Join me for the introduction next time.